that saved a wretch like me. You're here, I'm pleased, I really feel your company. Your style, your smile, your pace mentality. Lord, have mercy on me. I was blind, now I can see what a king's supposed to be.
Excuse me, miss. I was in the waiting room when you gave your testimony. And what I realized is that we have an enemy in common. While you were being called to the office again, I was being put out the only home I've ever known. While you were shaking with anxiety and fear over something no one ever wants to hear, I was shaking in dread. Because we all know what happens to little girls that have no home and no one to claim them. I think our souls passed each other by. See, my soul left me a long time ago in a dingy motel room, ripped away by brutal force. It fled, unable to find its way back home.
Historical people, who would you want in your seat and why?
Wow. I guess because I'm different. You know, I'm not really starstruck. And so it would be hard to really pinpoint anybody in particular. First person that just came to my mind, you know, I mean, if I had an opportunity to cut Denzel, you know, I would.
That's a good one.
I'd do that.
That would be a dope conversation.
Exactly.
How important is diversity in your work, considering you grew up in a bilingual, bicultural home?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important. I think at this point, just in society, there's just so much diversity. You know, whether it be in language, whether it be in your upbringing, whether it be, you know, whatever that is. And so I think growing up in, you know, a bilingual household as well as really a bicultural, despite the fact that, you know, my parents are you know, both of Hispanic descent, but growing up in two different cultures of, you know, very traditional values in the home and very different, and sometimes similar values, right, outside of the home, but in different ways, right?
Yeah.
He tests those whom he loves. I pray he continues to love me till my death. I pray he continues testing me and testing me and testing me until I have no questions left. Until I can ingest knowledge and choke on lies and spit out truth with every breath. But you see, until love for what he loves and hate for what he hates is the only thing that's left within my chest. I know that I will constantly fight to love what's right because I was created with a heart that sits slightly to the left. But I'm okay with that. Because I always knew and always know that he knows exactly what is best. You see, he knew that it would only be a matter of time before I would open my eyes and finally realize that I needed to look deep down inside and pull out the divide so that my heart and my mind would collide and learn to work together.
What's going on? What's going on, my good people? We are back for another amazing, powerful, insightful episode. This is Ordinary Conversations with Extraordinary People. I am your host, Mr. Willie Beamen. I'm definitely excited to have this young lady who we had last year, but we had to bring her back. Give her her due diligence. And so as I move forward and give her introduction, she is the owner of Fuego Therapy Counseling Services, PLLC, located in Arlington, Texas. Through her practice, she provides bilingual services in English and in Spanish. Also, she is born and raised in the DFW area. outside of her profession. She has a passion for traveling and exploring the world. Got to get into that. And then, last but not least, she enjoys spending time with loved ones, trying new foods, and exploring local spots in her hometown. Online community, in person family. Let's give a warm welcome to Miss Ivon Herrera.
Thank you.
Glad to have you back.
It's glad to be here.
Yes, yes, yes. So I know some things have probably changed. You probably had some new experiences, some new things going on in your life from the last time you were here in 2024. So just kind of share what's going on in the world of Ivon Herrera. What are some new things that you have been experiencing?
Yeah. Well, I'm still traveling a lot. Actually, here at the beginning of August, I went to Barcelona, so I went there. So that was really nice.
That's cool.
I also went to Guadalajara earlier this year. Had never been. It was really nice and exploring. I learned to swim this summer.
Oh, wow.
So I did. I was an adult person who did not know how to swim. And
no, you
now,
ain't the only one.
Now I know. Not proficiently, but if you throw me in the water, I can do really well. So got to keep practicing. But that was probably a really cool milestone for me as an adult to be able to finally say I can swim.
Wow,
still working on it, but I got passing score about 2 weeks ago. So we're good to go there. So never too late to try something in adulthood.
Yes.
So I did that. What else? I guess that's all really personally, professionally, still, learning to do more things. Previously I wasn't EMDR trained. So now I am eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I'm now, I have capacity to do that with my clients and have been since I learned. I do anger management now, something I didn't previously do.
Yeah.
So now I do anger management classes, Spanish and English as well. And then just continuing to see ongoing clients and still working a lot with the immigrant community, a lot of evaluations for immigration cases, still continuing to do that. But yeah, those are probably all the updates.
The updates. Yeah. We got to go back, man, to Barcelona. I've been outside the U.S. once. This is in 2014 when I went to the Cayman Islands.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very, very beautiful, man. They drive on the opposite side of the road,
really?
which was crazy. Steering wheel, that messed me up. Yeah. Iguanas everywhere, roosters everywhere, Jamaican food, but the culture was cool, man. And so for you, how was that in regards to that Barcelona trip?
It was really interesting because, I know Spanish, right?
Right.
But the Spanish I know is not how they typically speak, especially in Barcelona, because it's a portion called Catalonia, and they speak Catalan, which is not the same thing as Spanish.
Oh, explain.
So Catalan, the way that it was explained to me while I was there, Catalan is kind of like 80% Spanish, 20% French. And like if I read it, I was fine. But if someone spoke to me in Catalan, it was a little bit challenging to decipher.
Wow.
So that was very, very interesting to kind of see that. I had always known that existed.
Right.
I didn't know that part of it. And so navigating was fine because once they saw that I knew Spanish but not Catalan, then we kind of switched and we were able to communicate. So I was still able to get around and I was fine.
Right.
But when I encountered that was very interesting to kind of see that and notice that there was like such a difference. And they're very proud of that, which there's nothing wrong with that, but they're very proud people in their Catalan. And we were told, I traveled with a friend, we were told that even in the school system, they teach in Catalan. They don't teach in Spanish or any other language. They're very proud of that part, which is amazing to see that. And I think had I not gone, I would not have known that.
Yes, you wouldn't have got that experience.
I wouldn't have got to experience that. True. And so that was really interesting. That's cool. to learn about their culture in that particular way. They even have like a history museum specifically to like the Catalan part.
Wow, that's cool.
And I enjoyed that a little bit more than the Barcelona History Museum. Although some people were like, no, you'll enjoy the Barcelona History Museum more. And I didn't quite do that. So I feel kind of weird about that. But I enjoyed learning about them through that museum and just kind of like what happened in that area and like how it came to be and everything. And so that was really interesting and just so much knowledge there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I think that's important when you go to travel abroad and experience other different cultures. You want to have the ability to learn their history and the things that they've been through and encounter. I think that's very, very important. And then I've heard a lot, even with, Noemi, who's Spanish speaking, that they're all different styles and different I guess, languages in
Yeah.
the context of that community. So
Yeah.
I be learning a lot.
Yeah.
Try to learn from the language. You try to some days when we at work, you try
Yeah.
to break down words, and he's like, "Hey, say it this way,"
Yeah.
and I try my best to say it. So I'm always open, man, to learn other cultures and
Yeah.
be good at that. Hopefully, one day I could become a bilingual speaker. That would be great
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
think when you are a bilingual speaker, I think it opens a lot of doors for you, a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities in the marketplace or business, whatever, and then you can communicate
Yeah.
effectively. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
I think that's important. Um, what are some other things that you enjoyed? I guess in this trip, what did you do for fun?
The quiz, it was really interesting. So one of the things that, when people think of Spain, they think of tapas.
Mm.
And so it was interesting to learn like how that came about and how you're actually supposed to like indulge in that. So the way it was explained to me, I'm not gonna say like this is the way to do it. This is the way it was explained to me. So if someone hears me and they're like, "That's not it," this is how I was told. I was told that tapas originated from you know there used to be markets, right?
Hmm.
And people would fill up their donkey with whatever they could fill them up with, and every so often there would be stops, right, where you could give water to your donkey, hydrate yourself, things like that. And what happened is like people didn't want to have full meals at that because it was just a brief stop and then they kept going.
Gotcha.
So they had like kind of like a stein is what I was explaining. It was kind of like a stein, but the lid of it was concave, right? Concave.
Hmm.
And they would put like a little bit of whatever food they had on there, and they would eat it and drink as they,
Interesting.
they would eat and then they would drink, and they could take it to go, right? It was their stein that they filled up and they left. And but it was maybe like a 15-20 minute stop, and then they'd go on and stop at the next one, but they'd have something different, right? So then they'd get a different little food there,
Wow.
and things like that. And so it kind of, what I was explaining was that it came from that. And when you indulge in tapas, you kind of go from like one place to another, and they have multiple tapas, but sometimes they have like their specialty tapa. And so you just grab that and your drink, and then you finish that and you go to the next. And it's a 15-20 minute stop. And I was told that for the most part, when you get together with your friends and you're going to do the tapas, you don't ask for a seat. You're either like standing right outside the place, or you're like at the bar area so that you don't, take up of the table because you're
Right.
not going to be there long.
Exactly.
And so it was really interesting to notice that, because here, if you talk about tapas, you go to a restaurant, you sit there and you eat the tapas, right?
Right.
But in Barcelona, and I would imagine in all of Spain, it's not like that. They're going from one place to the next, trying the best one of each place.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow, I would love to experience.
Yeah. And it's like a
that.
group activity. There's like 5-6 people together in a group, and they engage together and they talk and they do everything, and then they move on to the next one. Yeah.
Wow.
It was so interesting because they were like, that starts relatively early. It's not like, hey, this is what we're doing for the night. It's like they kind of get off of work and that's kind of what they start doing. And then at the end of it, because you decide if you're gonna do 4 to 6 tapas or whatever you're gonna do, and then at the end of that, if you're still hungry, then you go to dinner. But if you're not, you just go home. And so that was really
cool.
interesting to notice that, like how they come together for this activity, but it's also to kind of like congregate,
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, community building is important.
Yeah.
Definitely important. Going back to I know you mentioned the swimming lessons.
Yeah.
I can attest to that because that's something that I'm trying to do as well. I'm not a swimmer either.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to learn as well and get better in that. I remember going to the Cayman Islands, and we got in a canoe, me and one of my friends, and I was terrified.
Yeah.
No land, just this body of water.
Yeah.
If you fall out, it's over.
Is it?
Yeah, and so we had life jackets on, but none of us knew how to use it. And so he's
Yeah.
in the front, I'm in the back, and I guess because we didn't know how to use it, he got out of the canoe trying to turn it around physically, and it almost flipped.
Oh no!
And I was terrified.
Oh,
I was
no.
screaming. I'm like, bro, what are you doing?
Yeah,
So he gets
yeah.
back in and finally find a way to use the paddles and get back to the shore. But yeah, I was terrified of that. And
Yeah.
so for you, how has swimming list? What made you want to start learning?
Well, I think I've always wanted to learn. And actually, the person who taught me, it was very interesting because I had mentioned to them that I didn't know how to swim, and they're like, "Oh, I'll teach you." And if you know anything about, and probably this year experience, you tell people you don't know how to swim, they're like, "Oh, I'll teach you," and there's no follow through on that. And so I was like, I have this whole book of all these people I've met through the years who are like, "I'll teach you," and I was like, "So I don't believe you," um, but they were very adamant, and so they decided to like, I like camping. I think I mentioned that last time I was here too. They would go with me when I went camping, and would go in the lake. I started off with floaties because, of course, I was terrified of the lake. So I started with a floaty, and so I did that, and like I got used to like the movements and everything. And then this summer, I like almost every weekend went to the pool. Uh,
Yeah.
and each time, I would try and I would try. It got to the point where like I knew the movements, but I needed to work on my breath work, right? Because natural breathing is different than swim breathing, actually. So, which was very interesting as a therapist, because when I do breath work, I teach how you normally breathe, and so to go like completely against that was
Against that.
pretty challenging for me.
Wow.
Because in naturality, or just in just breathing normally, we breathe in through our nose and let out through our mouth,
Right.
typically, right? But when it comes to swimming, you usually breathe in through your mouth and let go through your nose, or even through the mouth as well. And so that was very challenging for me.
Yeah.
And then here recently, my brain finally understood, like, when in water, this is how you breathe. When not in water, this is how you breathe. And so I've been able to, swim. I'm much better at swimming like underwater than above water.
Above water.
But I'm doing pretty good on both of them. So I got a pass from the individual who taught me. And so now it's just practice. But definitely that was probably one of the biggest challenges, the breath work on it.
Yeah.
And like, being like, I'm not gonna drown. Because I think I think that's the like struggle for adults, that it's like, how do I not drown? I'm gonna drown. And that like it's either really there or just kind of underlying. And so you have to like learn to like be like, okay, that might happen, but also this is why I'm learning, so it won't happen. Yeah. So that was really interesting.
Yeah. Even going back to my trip, I think one day we were out on the pier area. We didn't know this area that we weren't supposed to be in. The water wasn't clear at all, but we just having fun. I had no idea. And we're sitting, and I have my life jacket on, and I'm easily getting in the water because, like you just mentioned, I don't want to have the fear of drowning. So I'm barely getting in and trying to maneuver. And so now you're absolutely right, man. Hopefully that's something I can get better in. Get some practice.
Start in shallow water, because that's one of the things that I like started off with, that like I was in water where like if I was feeling like I was going to drown, I just stood up and I could get out of it, right? And then now I swim in deeper water, and I'm like, okay, I know how to like navigate to go above the water, to take a breath and come back down, and it's not as scary. But it did take me all summer. It took me all 3 months to like learn that. So it was definitely a skill that I had to like be patient to really navigate. And like here, the last 2 times I've gone swimming, the person who teaches me just doesn't get in the pool anymore because I don't need their assistance anymore.
Oh, wow.
And so
that's progress.
You get there's a lot of progress there. But I know that as an adult, there's a lot of fears there, and so you have to navigate those a little bit.
Yeah. I think for me right now, the highest I'm going is waist level.
Yeah.
I'm going to Cali in a couple of weeks with my wife, and I always like to go to different beaches. So that's all they're gonna get is waist. Anything else up here, I'm in trouble, man. Let's kind of pivot, man, and go to your upbringing and your childhood. So for you, as I was studying the bio, you grew up in a bilingual and bicultural home. So what are some traditions and values that you carry still to this day?
What do I think one of the biggest, I won't say like for everyone, but in my home, it is kind of the time of year for food. So like, right now, it's starting to get fall, and then it'll be winter. And for me, winter foods are like tamales, menudo, pozole.
Yes, I like all
that. So, it starts getting that time. And so for us, it's kind of like, depending on the season of the year, there's certain foods we eat and certain ones we don't.
Right.
Of course, there's people who cook those any time of the year, which is completely fine. In my family, though, we have like certain seasons where we cook certain things. And I think that's something that we have kept up. And like specifically, like we will make tamales, like I'm one of those cooks that like I don't use measurements because my mom didn't use measurements.
Mm.
I'm like a person like I gotta feel them myself. I can
Yeah.
tell you like, oh, it's missing this, or pour a little bit more water, or pour a little bit more of this, and then I taste it. I'm like, oh, it needs a little bit more salt. You know,
Mhm.
I am not a measurement. People will be like, how do you cook this? Tell me everything you need, and I'm like, I can tell you the ingredients, but that's about it. I can't really tell you like, oh, you need this much salt or you need this much this. You know, I don't really know that, which I think is a traditional thing because in the past, like there weren't measuring cups,
That's
you
true.
know.
That's true.
And so I think that's something that I've also learned from my mother, from her mother. I learned too. Like there's no real measurements for us. There are obviously there's real measurements. There's an amount that we put in, but we can't tell you what it is. We don't know like that.
Yeah,
And so I think that's another tradition there
that's cool.
for me within my family of learning how to cook, of you know food like when we eat certain meals, and then just the other thing culturally is just like knowing Spanish. And I know that's a like heavy topic because there are individuals who are, you know, Latinos, Hispanic, and they may not know Spanish. But for me, that was something that was also like brought up for me. That
Mm.
was very important that I knew both of those. And I'm not saying that in those households it wasn't important to learn that, but I think that is something that for me I've carried on. You
Yeah,
know, I do a lot of in my work. I do a lot of Spanish speaking.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so I
yeah.
still hold that true today. I think that's really important for me in terms of culture. The other thing, and actually this is more as an adult, I think as a young child, I really didn't engage in this part of my culture. But now that I'm older, um, I'm really into like the clothing of my culture.
Yeah, yeah,
I used to, I don't know that I used to not engage. I didn't wear it before, but I don't really know if it's because I didn't have access to it or it wasn't at the forefront of my mind. But now that I'm older, I wear a lot of like the traditional shoes. I wear a lot of the traditional blouses, things like that. And so I think that's something that in adulthood I've
Gotcha,
like
gotcha.
wanted more of.
Yeah,
So that's also interesting because you know there's parts of your culture that aren't like at your forefront, and then all of a sudden there's a shift, and now it's like super important,
yeah, yeah,
or something that you want to be in like your everyday life. And clothing actually has been one of the things that has been kind of at the forefront for me
yeah,
here like in the last 4 years
yeah,
has been really important.
yeah.
Yeah,
Nah, same here, man. My staff will tell you, you know, I love fashion. I try to
yeah,
come in here with different styles or different outfits, you know, in reference to,
yeah,
you know, our culture as well. And so I think that's definitely important. And then going back, you mentioning growing up in different food types and
yeah,
different ingredients. My family was the same way. There was like my grandmother, she really didn't use measuring cups and
yeah,
stuff like that. To me, I think that's just another level of skill.
yeah,
Being able to, okay, put a little bit of this in there, let me taste it. Ah, that's not right. Let me do this.
yeah,
Like that's another level of skill to be able to do that. And so me growing up too, my family was the same way. I would just watch my grandmother put things together, and then when it's all done, I taste it. It's
yeah,
delicious.
yeah, yeah.
So
And you know when you cook like that, it's so hard when someone like gives you a recipe because you know you try food that you know you don't know how to cook, so they give you the recipe, and that is such a challenging part for me because I'll read and I'll buy everything that I need, and then I'll taste it. I'll be like, oh, it's missing this for me, and like I add on to it, or I maybe don't use the same
yeah,
measurements.
yeah.
And so that can be a challenging part of cooking that way because you're like, I really liked it the way I ate it, but now that I'm cooking it. So
That's true.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
Um, I know you mentioned traveling being one of your passions, seeing the world, going to these different places.
Mhm.
The Barcelona trip you just experienced. So how has traveling and immersing yourself in different cultures influenced both your personal growth and your work as a counselor?
You know, uh, last time I was here, I had just come back from Ireland. If
Oh
you
yeah,
remember,
yeah, I remember
I
that.
had come back from Ireland, and you know, it's really interesting. I've been to a lot of places, more so, you know, in the last 2, maybe 3 years. I was in Korea for 3 months last year.
Wow.
I was in Ireland for about 10 days. I was in Barcelona for about 10 days, and a couple other places. I've been there somewhere between 5 to 10
Yeah.
days for the most
I
part.
need to get one of your your bags, man. You've been everywhere.
But one of the things that I really enjoy just as a person is just learning about their everyday life. just kind of like how they do things and things like that. Because my mother was very much into like, "Hey, be open to everything,
Yeah, yeah,
be open, learn about it. You may or may not need it, but it's nice to like know about it."
right.
And so being able to do that, I clearly I took her words to heart because I've been traveling everywhere I possibly can,
Yeah,
evidently.
that's cool.
And so it's just been really interesting to learn about people who aren't me, and then kind of be like, but they're so similar.
Mm,
They may be different in like what they do and how they say it, and whatever. But when you break it down to the most basic level, there's a lot of similarities,
right.
right, in what it is. And so I've just really enjoyed that, about learning cultures. I did that about like, Korean culture. I'd been learning about it since I was 15. I
Wow.
learned to speak Korean. I don't do it professionally because I think I'm at an intermediate level where like I can get around, but I don't
Yeah,
know that
not
I'm
a
going to be able to help professionally
right.
in therapy to do that. But I did all of that, and so professionally, it has helped me a lot. And in the aspect, especially the Ireland trip, of like, I work a lot with immigrants, and my experience comes more from my parents being immigrants from Mexico, right?
Right.
And I've met people from other Latin American countries, but to see the migration from different countries,
Mm,
has been so impactful. And Ireland was probably the most eye-opening, for me, because they have a whole museum dedicated to like the migration that happened due to the potato famine.
wow. That's cool.
And so it was so interesting to go through that museum, see their experiences in migration. Obviously, the migration reason was different from person to person, but to be able to see that and see the impact that it's had, right? Because one of the things that I do professionally when we talk about the migration is like your identity,
Yes, yes, yes.
and
It's
and
important.
that's for everyone, whether you've had migration or not. There's a big component of what is my
What is my
identity,
identity? Absolutely.
right? And so being able to see all of these cultures, and see that and understand that, when I think back to my trip to Israel as well back in 2019, I think about that too. There's so many different people there,
Mm,
different religions, different people, and just the the experiences that they've had as well. And so professionally, it's helped me to understand even further, right, the effects of migration, just moving,
mm,
right,
yeah.
from country to country, or even from one space to
To another.
another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, you've
Yeah.
been to a a
Yeah.
lot of different places.
Yeah.
In Israel, that's definitely on my bucket list. I would definitely love to visit Israel, Ireland. Me and my wife talked about Ireland, going
Yeah.
there before.
Yeah.
Canada is on our bucket list as well, going to see what their culture is like. But now that's important. I think that definitely helps you understand the
Mhm.
diversity of other cultures, and even in your
Yeah.
counseling as well, having the ability to communicate on different levels. So
Yeah.
that's powerful. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's powerful. So you mentioned a love for, I think you talked about it on the last show, a love for turtles.
I did. Yes.
So, and with that being said, how do they remind you to stay grounded, and what's the, I guess, the connection between you and, and turtles?
Yeah. Um, between me and Charles, I think one of the things, people automatically talk about is like, how they go slowly, right? That's a very common
Yeah.
conception. But for me, I think, the thing that helps me, or I relate more to turtles, is that they they're very calm for the most part,
Yeah.
right? They're very calm, and if you know anything about sea turtles, one in about 1,000 will survive, little baby turtles.
Hmm.
um, but what I like about them is, if you've ever gone to a release or seen them go into the ocean after they've hatched, they're so determined. They're like, and they follow, they usually go towards the sun, so wherever the sun is, that
Johnny's.
that's where they go. And so that's one of the things that I would say was like a comparison of like, they have a goal. Like, they don't know what's going to happen. They probably don't know that most of them won't survive, right? Unfortunately. But the determination of like, I got to get that way. I got to make it
Mm,
that way.
yeah. Yeah.
And they have like a firm path, so to speak, right, of where I'm going. And I think that that's the one big thing that I love about turtles, especially sea turtles, where they're dedicated, right? They're like, that's where I need to make it. and they go through the ocean. You know how many things are
Yeah.
in the ocean.
Yes.
And so
True.
just that admiration of like they're like this tiny little sea turtle,
Mhm.
and they're like, I gotta make it all the way over there. I don't know where I'm going, but I know I gotta follow that direction,
Wow.
and whatever comes through my path, right? And I think that is probably the most admirable thing I have about sea turtles,
Wow.
that they know where they're going or where they need to go, right? They don't really know where they're gonna land, but they know where they need to go, no matter what they're gonna come across.
That's
Yeah.
good. To me, that just shows. I think one thing I take from turtles is the ability to have strong patience, even
Hmm.
in the midst of, you mentioned the direction that they're going to. They may not know how it's going to end or what the end result may be,
Yeah.
but like you mentioned, they have a determination to get
Yeah.
there. But I think on the flip side of that, for turtles, is the patience that they have, and I think for me, that's one of my strongest
Mhm.
attributes. My wife will tell you her patience isn't as strong as mine's, but I think
Yeah.
in a lot of scenarios that I've been in, man, I think my patience is what allows me to navigate and stay the course. Even just being here and working at the library, there's different, diverse of people that come in here. There's different backgrounds. There's different walks of life. Everybody is not on the same level, and so I'm learning that you have to meet people where they are. People who have helped, on computers, who don't have um, the literacy to operate a computer, whatever the case may be. Me having strong patience and guiding them through
Mhm.
their process is definitely important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, no, turtles, man, they give you some.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
They're
give
very
you, yeah,
interesting. And
very.
there's so many, right? There's turtles, there's tortoise,
Yes,
and
yes,
they're all a little different. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I totally agree. What inspired you to start Fuego Therapy Counseling Services PLLC? What was the inspiration behind? Okay, this is something I want to do, and I'm going for it.
Yeah. I think one of the things that led me to, I was previously at other employments, right? I could just stayed there and, been a therapist at the other places that I was at. But I think one of the things that led me to start Fuego Therapy is just my community. So, I grew up in Arlington since I was about 10. And, I would hear like, oh, there's like no Spanish speakers and therapists in Arlington and things like that. And that was one of the things that drove me to
Yeah,
that absence, right,
right,
within the community, and obviously community members asking for it, asking for there to be a Spanish speaking therapist.
right.
And so that was probably one of the biggest, contributing factors to that, to be able to start Fuego Therapy and say, hey, I'm here, and I've been doing that here for the last year. I opened up a physical office about a year ago. And so just kind of letting the community know, like, I'm here, you know. And one of the things that also led me to do that is, yes, I'm here. I also, I only see 15 years and older. So, when they're looking for their young children, I'm not therapist for
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
but I'm like, call me and I'll find someone for you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Giving them a
like, giving
resource.
them a resource.
Yeah,
And so I think that that's also important because, it's already like, oof, you're taking a big step reaching out to therapy. And then for the therapist to be like, well, I don't see your kids, so bye. I think that's
mm,
really can be challenging,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so I would rather be like, yes, I can take you on, or hey, I don't see, children under the age of 15. Here's a couple of numbers here
yes,
still in the area,
yes,
right? Because I'm connected with other Spanish speakers who are in the area. And so, we all see different ages, we all see for different concerns, right? And so I just have a ongoing list of all of those. And I'm like, I'm not probably the best fit. Here's some people who might be.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. That's important. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Giving people the right resources. I might not be
Yeah.
the person to help, but
Yeah.
here's a
Yeah.
contact for you. Here's someone
Yeah.
that I know who's skilled in this area, who
Yeah.
has the expertise and can help you. So no, that's good. Giving them the resources. Even for me, I mentioned offset on how I've started my therapy journey. Long time coming. 'Cause I think a lot of times for men specifically, we go through life, bottling a lot of emotions, not really taught to express, to be vulnerable, to be transparent. I grew up in a single parent home. Me, my
Mhm.
sister, and my mother, who did the best she could. And so, me and my father, we were kind of on and off, but it's a lot better now as I've gotten older and became an adult. But I had to learn a lot on my own, as a man.
Yeah.
There's only so much a woman can teach, her
Yeah.
son. And so going through that phase, getting married at a young age, going through that phase. And so I'm like, okay, it's time to take this
Yeah.
serious and
Yeah.
start this therapy work. And so I'm going on my 4th session actually this Friday. Yeah, it'll be my 4th
nice.
session. 9 in the morning, very early, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm excited to see where this leads me, man, and just becoming the better version of myself. Whether it's here being a leader, whether it's a husband, whether it's um, a brother, whether it's a friend, whatever it is, making sure that I can get better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hasn't been easy, but I believe it's worth it.
Yeah,
at the end.
yeah. I often tell a lot of my clients that, you learn about a lot about yourself that you didn't anticipate,
Yeah.
and to give yourself grace, which is the hardest thing we do to ourselves.
Yes.
We don't give
Yes.
ourselves grace
We
when things
don't.
come up.
We
And
don't.
so the challenge there is giving yourself grace when you learn something new about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. I was talking to my therapist, maybe the 2nd or 3rd session, and I was telling him, when it comes to people, you know, doing me wrong or saying certain words or doing something, it takes a lot for me to get upset with them and angry with them. But then he stopped me. He was like, "Whoa, but you don't do that with yourself." And I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't give myself enough grace. I don't give myself enough mercy. I beat myself up in certain occasions. And so, yeah, I was like, yeah, you're right about that. So I know that's an area that I got to get better
And you're
at.
not alone. I mean, I went through my own therapy journey, and I had to learn that too. As a therapist,
That's what I was ready to ask you.
I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I should do that for me too. So, I started therapy like end of 2021. I was there for about 2 or 3 years, and just a lot of life changes for me, and I was like, oof, I need some help.
I need some help. Yes, help me, please.
And so, I went on my own therapy journey, and it helped me a lot with learning my needs and prioritizing things that I needed, because we struggle with those things. We're all human, right?
Yes, we're human.
So definitely, I hear you when we're learning about ourselves and being like, okay, we'll get through that, at our rate, right? Whatever that is. And so, I think I'm the healthiest version of myself today.
Wow, that's awesome.
I don't know that I could say that before the pandemic, but at least after 2021, I started being the best version of myself that I could possibly be.
I love it. So you started before you became your own therapist?
No, I was already a therapist.
Already a therapist?
Yeah, I was already a therapist. Some would say I was probably like a baby therapist. When I started therapy, I was probably like 3 years into being a therapist. So I would still be considered kind of like a baby therapist at that time. And it just kind of helped me grow. I think I always talk about how professionally I'm at the best place possible with what I know, right? Obviously, there's still areas of growth for me and learning, but at the place that I'm at professionally, I always felt that way. But then, like, I felt kind of like not stabilization, as we say. And I was like, maybe I need some help with this. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. And there's a lot of areas, blind spots for me that I was evidently not seeing. And so I learned to give myself grace. I learned to be more set in my boundaries. I learned, and that's the thing, sometimes, that's a very vulnerable thing to say as a therapist. Like, everybody seeing this is going to be like, she's a therapist and she didn't know how to do that. I'm human. I'm human. I didn't know some of those things, and so I think learning a lot of those things, going through my own therapy journey as a therapist, I think helped me be even more in tune with my clients. I think, going through therapy and, learning of my own things, I'm like, I can see where that would be a struggle. I learned to, I think I was already giving my clients space when we were processing things, but it challenged me to kind of even meet them more where they were at. And so that was really nice. And then I think about like the relationship I had with my therapist, and I'm like, oh, I hope I become a therapist like that. I hope my clients say the things and the thoughts that I have about my therapist. Because I think she was a really great therapist for me and what I needed. Going back to like, I would love to be somebody's therapist with the recognition that I might not be the best fit. And I think that became even more so after my own experience that, if I'm not their therapist, like that sucks. But also like, it only sucks for me. Like for them, they're going to find a great therapist that meets their needs. And that's the important part when you reach out for mental health services.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to ask you that question in regards to you doing your own therapy work, helping you be a better version to your clients and meeting them on a deeper level. And so, I think that's definitely important. How you took the initiative to say, maybe there's some areas that I need to get better in so that I can be more effective when I'm meeting with my clients.
Yeah. It's definitely true. Your therapist has a therapist.
Yes.
It's true.
Shout out to Dr. Tony Cunningham. She said that on the last show. She said every therapist needs a therapist. Yeah, I totally agree with that. In your work, in your practice, you specialize in solution-focused brief therapy. What drew you to this approach, and how does it help your clients?
Yeah. I think that what drew me the most to it is that it's very direct. It's very gently direct, is what I'll say. And in the Hispanic culture, we end up being very direct. There's no sugarcoating in Spanish. It's really hard to sugarcoat. If you can do it in Spanish, I could applaud you. That is not something that I could particularly do in the Spanish language. I'm very, very direct. In English, I'm a little bit more softer and can sugarcoat a little bit better. But in Spanish, that's a bit of a challenge for me. I don't know if other Spanish speakers struggle with sugarcoating in Spanish, but that was very challenging for me. And so what I like about solution focus is that it's very direct. It's very, we talk about, if you read about it, it talks about being very present and future oriented, right? And we get a little bit of a bad rep that we don't talk about the past, or we don't focus on the feelings, and that's not particularly true. What happens is that we want to go from what's known as like problem talk to solution talk, right? Because the belief is that if we're too much in problem talk, we're just kind of stuck there, right?
Wow.
When we come to solution talk, it's like, we live by 3 rules, and they're common. That you can, even if we didn't have this theory, people would know them. If it's working for you, keep doing it. If it's not working, stop doing it. And if it's not working, let's try something different. How about that?
I like that.
And so that kind of moves it into like solution talk of like, all right, this is what has been occurring, and this is, what you've been doing here. What else could we try? What would it look like? If everything was how you imagine, what does that look like? Sometimes one of the questions I use a lot is called a miracle question. And it goes something like, Willie, if you went to sleep tonight and you woke up tomorrow, how would you know that you had the life that you're looking forward to? What would that look like? And depending on the client, right, I have to meet them where they're at.
Right.
Sometimes I have to be like super specific. I'll be like, so when you open your eyes, what do you see? Some clients I don't have to do that because they're a little bit, again, meeting them where they're at. But sometimes when there's a client who it may be a struggle to kind of see that, I have to be even very like detailed and specific. Okay, so when you wake up, what do you see? Did you wake up looking to the left? Did you wake up looking to the right? What was it like?
Specifics.
And so it helps me understand as we continue our therapeutic relationship, like if I don't hear those things, then whatever is currently happening or what they're doing may not be contributing to that. So that may be something that we need to, bring up and be like, okay, you mentioned, 4 sessions ago, this is what you wanted that to look like. Are we there? How are, again, we use another question, a scaling question of, from 1 to 10, 10 being like, yeah, I'm absolutely there. 1, not really there. Where are you in that scenario?
Like
right. And so I do a lot of that with my clients. And so it's very direct, right? That's very direct, like really in your face. Obviously I try to do it as gently as possible. I don't want to freak anyone out. But it's those types of questions of like, let's get you to where you're looking. And that way you can enjoy right now and still have a plan for the future. And this particular theory also works if you're too future oriented, that you can't enjoy the present. So then I also have to work with individuals who are just like, they don't find enjoyment of like, they did an accomplishment and they can't fully enjoy it. I have to bring them back to like the present of like,
wow,
let's really talk about this accomplishment, and what that means for you, and so there's a lot there. And obviously emotions come up there, and we talk about emotions and feelings and all of. And so I just really like it for that reason. I think it works really well, especially, again, I see mainly Spanish speakers. And so it really resonates with them for the most part, right? Sometimes I do have to modify a little because some clients do let me know, like, I'd rather talk a little bit more about my feelings. That's perfectly fine, right? Again, meeting them where they're at.
Meeting them where they are. Yeah.
And so being able to do that is really helpful for me.
Yeah. I love it. I love how you mentioned the strategy of problem work and going to solution work. I think that's important. You know, like
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, some people get stuck in
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember someone once told me that therapists ask you the questions that nobody else asks you.
Mm,
And that's really stuck with me. I think about that often. And I'm just like,
wow.
I wonder these questions that I'm asking my clients, how often they get asked these questions. Which is probably not often. Some of them will tell me like, nobody's asked me that before, and I'm like, yeah, okay, well
Yeah.
let's delve into it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's powerful. Yeah. I
yeah,
like that. Moving forward, when it comes to clients, I'm pretty sure you have a diverse
yeah,
clientele. So how do you help clients who may feel shame or stigma around seeking mental health support? And the reason why I ask this is because, like I mentioned earlier in the show, a lot of us are afraid to open up, or there's their
yeah,
fear of, being judged or criticized, or how will the therapist see me or view me because
yeah.
I'm, trying to open up and be vulnerable. So, what would you say to those who do struggle with, the shame and the stigma of opening
Yeah.
up?
You know, I don't know that there's like a one answer for
Yeah,
that. Unfortunately, I wish there
yeah,
was, but the reality is that there isn't. I think the way that I handle it is the best way for me that I know how to. And I think for me, and it's challenging because it's like, where does that come up? Does it come up in the consultation call when they're about to be
mm,
ready to book,
yeah,
or does it come up when you're like in the first session right in front of your therapist,
right,
right? When does that come out? That's also like a contributor to that of like, when do we have this conversation? I think for me, the way I kind of try to not necessarily limit that feeling, but address that feeling. I
mm,
think it's the better way of saying that is, I explain my process completely. I let them know up front, like, what does therapy look like with me? What am I the best fit for the concern that you're telling me? And if I am, here's what that looks like for me. And here is your part in that as well. A lot of the questions I end up getting is like, well, how often will I have to see you? Which comes from that, like, ooh, how often am I going to have to tell you about my life?
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And so it's like, well, and my usual default there is, usually, the first 4 sessions, I would like them to be consecutively so that I can really get to know the person, right? And really
right,
get to know their goals. And then after that, if you feel like biweekly is better for you, that's fine. But the first 4 weeks, this is the purpose of seeing you every single
every
week,
single
right?
week.
And so I'm very transparent in my process. And then, if I could divulge who my clients are, which I can't because of confidentiality, right? But if I could divulge who my clients are, you will probably hear them all say, she's always asking if I have a question, if I need something clarified. Because every time I finish something that is is me informing them of something, I'm like, any questions on what I just shared with you? Anything I can clarify for you before we move
That's
forward?
so important. Yeah,
And so I say that no matter what session, it could be session 100, and I'm still saying that.
yeah,
If I add something new to their session, I'm like, I know that was a lot, and I know I talk more than I normally do. Is there any question you have from what I just shared with you? Is there anything I can clarify at this moment? Sometimes they say yes, and they'll tell me what it is. Sometimes they're like, no, you were really clear. So even when they say that, I'm still like, oh, that's great. However, if in the future you're thinking about this and you're like, oh, you know what, I do have a curiosity about that, just let me know,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I'm always transparent about what I'm sharing, what the process is, and then leaving it open. And like, were there to be a question, I'm always open to it.
Wow, I
Yeah,
love that. I love that
because
concept.
I always talk about how, the scariest thing, the thing that makes it scary is I don't know.
Mm,
I talk about that with CPS reports. Thankfully, I haven't had to make any in like the last year and a half. But when we talk about confidentiality, and you would know this, we talk about that. We're like, everything that's shared here is within us, with a couple
yes.
exceptions. One of
Mm-hmm.
them, if I have to do a CPS report, and I always tell my clients, if I have to do a CPS report, I know that's not a great situation. I will tell you every part that I am doing, because the more you know about what I'm doing, the less scary it is. It doesn't mean it's not going to be scary, but if you know at least what I'm doing, then that part isn't scary,
Mm, I
right?
love it. Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that transparency comes from that, because a lot of, there's a fear of unknown,
Yes,
right?
yes,
I
right.
don't know what's going to happen in therapy, right? So let me be as transparent with what I do know
No,
right
right
now.
now. I love it.
Yeah.
That's good. Going back to you were mentioning asking the follow-up questions. I think that's very important to me because I think there's a difference between being uninformed and being misinformed. When
Hmm.
you're uninformed, you're like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
really know what's
Yeah.
going on. when you're misinformed, you're like, maybe there's some more clarity that I may need
Yeah.
in this situation. So I love that
Yeah.
concept. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, follow questions is everything because
Yes.
you want to keep it open, you know, to the
Yeah.
client.
Yeah. And depending on the session, you might not have the brain to be like, yeah, I have all these
Yeah,
questions. So that's why I would say, if in the future you have a question, I'm happy to answer it,
I
because
love that.
depending on what you share, you might not have the space right then and there to be like, yeah, I have all these questions
Yeah,
now. So yeah.
yeah. Give me your perspective on what you think are some key components in regard to a person's healing journey. What do you think are some key things in regards to being healed?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ones is kind of going back to grace, like
Mm,
being able to like share that. A lot of therapists will talk about vulnerability, and that is definitely a part in it. Uh, but what comes after vulnerability, right?
yeah.
I can be vulnerable and still hate that I had to be vulnerable, right?
Mm,
I can still
yeah.
hate that I had to share that, right?
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that I think is really conducive to that healing is, what do you do after being vulnerable?
I love
Yes,
that.
vulnerability is absolutely important.
It's
I'm not saying that it isn't. What do you do after you're vulnerable?
mm,
Because that's really what's going to cement how I viewed that vulnerability.
whew, that's good.
So I
That's
think that
good.
that's the most important part. And I work a lot with many clients, really a build up to that of like, let's build some grace,
Yeah.
right? Because you might not like the person you discover
You
that you are.
discover your yeah.
And you have to be vulnerable about, who am I really? And then
Wow.
what happens after that, right?
Wow.
Because if we don't hold that space, that grace, right? What may register is, oh, I don't like that person, and now I have this belief of like, ugh, I'm this and this person, right? And so it's what comes after vulnerability is the most important.
Wow.
Building that grace, building that acceptance, building that space to be like, yeah, I didn't like what I discovered, and that's okay. What do I do now?
What do I do now? Whew.
Yeah.
I hope y'all are listening to Miss Yvonne drop the gems. I've never heard it, put that way. Even with me, I'm learning to be more vulnerable as well. But like you mentioned, what's next?
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
after that?
yeah.
And
What happens after that release, right?
yeah.
Because that's what also matters.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I totally agree. Going back to your clientele, and I'm pretty sure you're busy with different personalities, different backgrounds, different walks of life. How do you balance being both compassionate and professional in regard to the type of clients that you meet with? 'Cause I'm pretty sure there may be a thin line that you put in
Yeah.
place.
Um, I think it goes back to like meeting them at where they're at. I think I described this last time I was here, but it's that aspect of like, for the time that they're with me, I'm everything and anything they need in the therapeutic realm, right? And then once they leave, I have to believe that whatever they process during that time, they're going to implement that
Mm,
during the time that I don't see them, right? And so I have to believe that.
mm,
And I think, you know, again, going back to like, I make sure they don't have any questions before they leave.
before they
even
leave.
even if I don't add information, sometimes I'm like, any questions before we close out today? Anything on your mind? Anything else you wanted to share with me that maybe we didn't have the space for? Now I have to watch out for that, because that might open some things, and then
Mm,
I'm like, oh, we don't have time to go into them.
yeah,
So it's a very like light check-in at the end as well. So
I
you
like
check in at
that.
the beginning, you check
Checking
in
at
at
the
the end,
end. I like that.
because that way I know where to start a check-in the next time.
Wow.
Like, oh, I know you mentioned this at the end of session. Is that something we delve into today? Is that not something we delve into today? Where are you feeling with that? Right. And so it helps me a lot with that as well, to do a check in, not only at the beginning, but also at the end, for that. And so it keeps me on track of like what's coming up for them. And also like, that's on hold until next time I see them.
Mm,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Checking in the beginning, checking in at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's
I,
dope.
I always I always jokingly say that my clients must be tired of me, because I'm always checking in, whether they need a question, a clarification. I'm like, they must be tired of me saying all of this.
No,
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah.
Even outside of that, because I know people who come and they share their heart, they share their vulnerability. And I believe for you, I don't know if sometimes that could possibly be a weight. And so for you, how do you make sure that you're taking care of yourself outside of your profession, make that you're
Yeah.
decompressed and that
Yeah.
self-care? What does that look like for Miss Ivon Herrera?
Yeah. It depends on the day. There are some days where like music is really good.
Mm,
I just listen to music while I'm going home, and that, by the time I'm home, I'm in a different space, right? Sometimes it depends, on other factors, and I may need to check in with a colleague, like, hey, I had a rough day. Is it okay if I like kind of tell you where I'm at with this? So it kind of depends on what it is, but those are some of the things that I do. I listen to music. I check in with colleagues. Uh, those are probably the two main ones that I do.
Yeah.
I think those really help me regulate.
Yeah.
Like when I come away from work.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
What type of music? Different styles, different genres?
Uh, Specifically non-lyrical music. So
Like
just
instrumentals?
just
That's
instrumentals.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think part of that in my brain, I've like tried to figure out why, but I think part of it is because I hear so much, right? And so if I don't
I
hear
love that.
words, I
Yes.
can just feel the melody,
I like
right?
that.
And so that can help me regulate my own emotions as well.
That's cool.
So I listen specifically to instrumental music, and it
Right.
could be like a song that does have lyrics, but with the lyrics removed.
Remove.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I like
yeah,
that. Now it's funny you mentioned that because my wife started doing that probably a couple of years ago, and now I'm doing it.
yeah, yeah.
Listening to certain songs without the lyrics, just the sound and the beat
Mhm.
and the instruments. And so I was even doing that last night. I found some band on
Yeah,
Instagram. And they had a guitar player, they had a
yeah,
piano, and just the sound could sometimes be soothing.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I
yeah,
definitely, that's probably one of the main ways that I regulate. And then again, if I have a really, what I would consider like a challenge day for me to like regulate, I call a colleague.
yeah,
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 yeah. Gotcha. Well, we're going to get into, as we put a wrapper on this show, one of my favorite segments of the show is What's Your Library Joy? As me and Miss Ivon Herrera kind of talk about our experiences with libraries, growing up in libraries, our childhood, all those different things. And then to put the icing on the cake, I'm going to ask her a question that's centered around our beautiful displays here on the right of me. We're in the process of expanding, so y'all be on the lookout. It's coming. It's on the way. And so, Miss Yvonne, just kind of share with us, your upbringing with libraries and that experience.
yeah. So for me, so I ended up being at one of the Dallas public libraries. Until I was 10, I was in Dallas for a while. And I remember, we get things that we have to do on the computer. And at that point, there was no computer at home.
Yeah,
So you had to go to
yeah,
the library. But that was really great for me because like I got to be able to go, and it was so interesting. I still remember the process, like, right, you had to get a library card, you had to
yeah,
check in. They would give you like this little code, and then you had a timer. Like you clicked in with your code, and you had a little timer, and so you knew how much time you had on the
yeah,
computer and stuff. And so that was really great. Like I remember my mom being next to me and me on the computer, and her helping me, just navigate that as well. And so that was really great for me. And then just I have an older brother, and so he would have to do things, and he's 3 years older than me. So what he needed the computer for and what I needed it were very, very different.
yeah,
And so it was really nice that I was able to like go get books and be able to read them. And at that library, they even had a section where like if you wanted to watch something, you could pick it out and put it in there, and you could watch it.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that was really, you know, a really good space for me
That's cool.
to be able to be like, because sometimes I didn't have anything to do on the computer, Sometimes it was my brother who needed it, and I'd be like, well, I don't want to be on the computer. I just want to go somewhere else. And to have those spaces around the library was really good for me because I didn't have to stay in one place or do one particular thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was really, I think that was a really impactful thing for me. And even now, I still have a library card. I go to the Arlington library, so I still have a library card, and I go there occasionally. And so just to be able to have those spaces and be able to go, I think is very important. Cause I mean, I still remember that. And, I'm 30, that was like 10, 20 years ago, 20, 25 years ago. And I still remember that. It's very impactful for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I totally agree. My childhood with libraries was kind of on and off, like I've shared, throughout some of our shows and even with the staff. I really got the true experience of libraries when I first started working here
Yeah. Yeah.
last year in 2024. Because my thought process was, okay, I go in the library, I check out a book, I do a print or fax or whatever, and that's it. So when I started working here last year, I had no idea that a lot of these libraries were doing these dope and innovative programs for
Yeah.
adults, for seniors, for children, for teens, and it was really, really amazing to see a lot of the things that these libraries were doing, especially ours.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really, really blew my mind. I'm like, okay, it's
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
another level.
yeah.
Yeah, and so some of the things that I definitely enjoyed working here is our STEM program is definitely very popular for
Yeah.
ages from like 7 to 12. The most recent one we had with Dr. K and Dr. Parker in the summer, she was teaching them how to use like drones and stuff like that. They
Yeah.
had this whole city built in the children's area. They flying drones, messing around with them. I'm learning how to use it.
Yeah.
It was cool,
Yeah.
man. Fun experience. Our teen cooking camp is very,
Oh,
very
nice.
popular. We do that twice a
Yeah.
year, so we'll be bringing it back next year. We have a culinary chef. Shout out to Chef Stevie Ray, who's very, very gifted at that, and teens loved it.
Yeah.
You know, they cooking pancakes, they cooking waffles, they
Yeah.
cooking tacos and enchiladas. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool. We had a chance to eat some of it too.
Yeah. That's the
So,
important
yeah,
part. You
that's
get to eat what you cook.
yeah, so he had us, do our taste testing. So that was fun as well. And then last year when I first got here, we put together this huge concert. It was supposed to be here, but due to weather changes, we had to move it somewhere else. But I believe the turnout was still great. We had R&B, we had Tejano Heat, who will be here next week, September 27th,
Yes.
for our Latin nights, no programming, but they were amazing band, very, very diverse in their music. Yeah, just had a great time, food, different vendors who showed up, who we had the ability to patronize. And so, yeah, one thing that Rita always says, man, and it stuck with me, that libraries are more than just a place that has books.
Yeah.
And that really, really stuck me because it's like the programs that we do, man, we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Just like you are meeting the needs of your clients,
Yeah.
we have the same mindset
Yeah.
to make sure that we're doing those things. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been a fun
Yeah.
journey. So even with you now that you're older and remembering those experiences, are you reading any books currently, or you're more paperback, audio?
You know, I think growing up in a library made me be one of those. I don't want to say like I'm a snob about it, but I just cannot do a Kindle. I
No?
need a physical book. I need to
Yes,
grab it
doctor,
and read
yeah,
it
yeah.
and mark it. Obviously, not library books. Don't mark those. But
Don't mark
don't mark those at all. But if you have your own books, I just there's just something about holding the book, and
Yeah.
I think part of that comes from having been in a library, reading in a library,
Yeah.
and I'm just so used to like following, being able to stop, have my bookmark, and everything. And I just, if you can read online, absolutely wonderful. But I am not one of those people. I need a
So you need
physical
the
book.
physical, yeah. I got it.
Because I just need it. I need to hold it to read it. So I really enjoy like a physical copy.
I love it.
I love the smell of new books, by the way. They smell really nice. That might be a little weird, but it's just book lovers will.
Yeah, no, book lovers. Are you
Yeah.
reading any books currently?
Right now I'm reading a lot of therapy books.
Gotcha.
I was mentioning I'm recently EMDR trained, so
Yes.
definitely reading a lot up on that, being able to make sure that I just recently learned it. I got certified. Well, I got trained, right, to be able to utilize it, but I want to make sure that I'm keeping up with it,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So
Always learning.
I'm doing a lot of more professional reading these days. But you know what? The new Hunger Game book came out, and people have been raving about it, and I'm just like, maybe I'll buy it and read it, because there's been a lot of good reviews about it, and people very excited and connecting a lot of things from previous books and things. And I'm like, you guys are kind of making me want to buy this book and read it. So yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I'm reading a lot of kind of similar self-help books. The book that I need to finish at home is How to Influence People by John Maxwell.
Oh, okay.
Talks about
yeah.
influence and the power of influence and relationship building. So that's something I need to finish. And I'm also reading another book. Me and the staff, we went to a library conference earlier this year, TLA. Michael let us go, and I had the ability to be in these different workshops and get the authors to sign books. And one of the books I'm reading as well is a book that's centered around grief. Talks about a teenager who lost her friend, but at the same time she wants to pursue her dream and become a pilot. So she's trying to juggle both of them at the same time. And so it's been a good read as well. Like you say, turning the pages, reading the lines, holding it in your hand is different.
Yeah. So I absolutely just love physical copies.
As we close the show, I know I allowed you to kind of take a sneak peek at our beautiful expansion displays over there. So for you and what you've seen, what are some additions you're excited to see?
So I'm really excited about two parts. I looked at it like for like 5 minutes and was like, which part? I know you mentioned like the multi-purpose room was you were looking forward to it, and I think that's a really great space to have. For me, I think the tech parts as well as like the study rooms are really important. I think about like my experience with libraries and things like that. And again, going back to my experience, that tech part was super important because we may not have that at home, right? And I didn't. That's the whole reason one of the primary reasons I went to a library, because I didn't have it at home, right? Wow. And then to have someone who can maybe assist me if I don't know how to do certain things, I think that's really great. So I like that part. And you have like a business tech and then like tech. So I like that. And then the study rooms, I think back to college, I studied I went to UTA. And I was in the library and the study rooms, studying. And then when I didn't have a study room, I was in the other spaces, open spaces that they had, which I noticed that you also have there too. Mm-hmm. And so like, I think that that's really great because we need those. Yes, there's just something about a library that like feels so studious and you're like really dedicated. Yes. And I absolutely love that. So I think I'm really like, I'm vacillating between those two sections. I don't know which one I like more. I think now because I have my own laptop and things, I'm a little bit more into like the study rooms. Yes, I think they're really conducive to that. When I'm in my office, I'm much more readily, working than if I'm in another space. So I think for students who come and use the library, I think that just those study spaces, I think would be really beneficial.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, we are at the end of the show. I thank you for gracing the show again.
Thank you for inviting me again.
Yeah, we had to bring you back, man, and make sure that we gave you the proper show. Things have gone better and we've grown since then. Yes. And so we definitely appreciate you coming back, man, and just catching up with us. I know you've done a lot and experienced a lot, and so definitely grateful. But we had fun.
We did. I always have fun when I come to the Forest Hill Library. You guys are a great bunch.
Yes. This is Ordinary Conversations with Extraordinary People. I am your host, Willie Beamen. We've had an amazing time today with Miss Ivon Herrera, just catching up and talked about some great things, man. And so all I can say is just keep doing what you're doing. There's a need for the community and what you're doing, man. And so I hope and pray that you continue to stay the course.
Thank you.
and move forward. So, but we will see you guys next week via Facebook Live at 12 p.m. We have another amazing expanded guest, Miss Tammy Gomez, who will also be our opening poet for Latin Nights next Saturday, September 27th at 6:30. Get your tickets. They are $20 pre-sale right now online, and they're $30 at the door. Food and drinks are included. It's going to be an amazing time. I love our adult programming, and so stay tuned next week. We'll see y'all. Peace.